Did the Greeks get their idea for a multi-headed monster from nature itself? Maybe they saw something that looked a lot like what you're about to see in this next video.
September 2020. Jeannie Wilson of Taylorsville, North Carolina is cleaning up after game night with family and friends. She heads into her sunroom where she comes across a modern-day monster. She records this video of a foot-long snake slithering around the bottom of a 5-gallon container with 2 heads. Based on the video, the snake's heads appear to be working independently of each other. Jeannie was nearly shocked out of her skin.
I spotted him in the corner of the sunroom. I thought somebody had stepped on his head and mashed it. And I looked really close and I said, "You've got 2 heads." And it's like, wow, for a 2-headed snake to make it that long out in the wild is amazing.
Field researcher Cliff Barrickman believes that animals like this 2-headed serpent may have been the original inspiration for many of the world's most fearsome mythical monsters.
Probably the only thing scarier than a snake might be a 2-headed snake. If we look back into ancient times, you can find stories of multi-headed animals, like the multi-headed dog Carabas that guarded the gates of hell, or the Hydra, the many-headed snake monster. And I think that behind these sorts of stories is always a grain of truth.
Field researcher Ken Gerhard lays out a more sinister idea. Warning, these images could be disturbing.
I'm thinking of a Russian scientist who is able to successfully attach the head of a dog to another dog.
That would be Dr. Vladimir Demikhov, a pioneering Russian surgeon who transplanted one dog's head onto the neck of another dog back in 1968. The conjoined animals survived for 38 days.
So we can't rule out the possibility that this 2-headed snake could be the result of a similar type of experimentation.
Sadly, about 3/4 of all conjoined twins die before, during, or soon after birth.
So how did the snake get this way, and how did it survive?
Is this fantastic beast unnaturally lucky, or is it a bit too fantastic?
First, we brought the video to Roxy Furman to assess the authenticity.
I've seen conjoined twins before of various different other species, but my initial instinct was, is this head real or not? And up until kind of halfway through, this second head is not kind of using its tongue to smell the environment. But then there was a point where the second head, its tongue comes out, and at this point you can see it's kind of wanting to move in a different direction, which then made me think this is real.
Furman says these 2-headed creatures are examples of a natural but mysterious mutation called polycephaly.
There's a lot that we still don't understand about conjoined twins. If there are 2 heads, both which have their own consciousness, then who kind of overrides the control of the body, or whether they communicate with one another as 2 individuals would.
Furman refutes the idea that this multi-headed snake could be the product of human experimentation, similar to that of Soviet scientists in the 1950s.
There's no indication of recent surgery, there's no stitches or suture marks.
So it's a real, natural-born snake. But what explains its mutation and its survival?
It seems to be doing pretty well. This is unique because we don't often see animals with 2 heads that seem to be healthy, because they don't tend to survive in the wild.
And while Conger is positive the snake isn't some bizarre experiment, she says the genetic mutation we see here may still have been caused by humans, just not intentionally.
Amphibians and reptiles, like snakes, are actually just really prone to mutation. And a lot of this has to do with environmental pollution. It's been shown that there's a number of pollutants that can actually cause malformations in wildlife, and we're seeing this increasingly today.
So, our verdict. This snake was an example of polycephaly, quite possibly caused by pollution. What became of it is this story's happy ending. Jeannie gave the snake to a friend, and here's his update. He says he named the serpent Double Trouble and says he's alive and well.
Buenos Aires, Argentina, April 2020. Local media report strange sightings of bats that can swim and run on land. One provocative online headline reads, "Mysterious humanoid bats reported in Argentina and in China." And here is their proof. These humanoid-looking bat-like creatures appear to be swimming in a local lake. Take a closer look. What in the world can they be? 6,000 miles away, another freakish video of more mystery bats, this time from China. Watch as this one flops on the ground, making unsettling vocalizations.
It's flopping around, it's screeching, it's acting erratically. It's actually kind of disturbing. So it's fairly obvious why someone would immediately look at this and think this is some kind of really strange, weird-looking mutant bat.
Ambitious scientists have tried to create custom hybrid species before. Perhaps most famously, the Soviet zoologist Ilya Ivanov tried to cross an ape and a human back in the 1920s, without success. Are these swimming bats the result of some recent genetic project?
Even normal bats have a complex relationship with humans. Research suggests some viruses like measles and mumps originated in bats. But are the animals in these videos really some kind of mutant? We turn to our analysts.
I can see how this would look particularly mysterious.
Marine biologist Dr. Shay Conger says the theories about these creatures run the gamut.
There's some conjecture online that this animal might be the mix between a bat and something like a frog.
But she doesn't believe that kind of crossbreeding is possible.
To be able to mix two species that are so different would be highly unlikely and wouldn't result in something that would actually be alive.
So if this is not a mutant, what is it? Wildlife biologist Lucy Eckersley first focuses on the video out of China.
I don't think that this is even a bat. I think it's another type of mammal, something that's called a colugo. Colugos are a type of gliding mammal that are sometimes also called gliding lemurs. They can reach up to 200 feet using this amazing area that's called the patagium, that fold of skin that reaches from their forelimbs down to their hind limbs.
That might explain the Chinese video. But what about these strange things in the water in Buenos Aires?
I don't think that these are colugos. I think what we're actually seeing is a marine animal called a sea hare that we can see around the world and can grow up to 15 inches long. Both of these animals, I understand why people might think that these are mutant varieties of bats living underwater or looking like this strange animal screeching on the ground. But what I can tell by looking at their anatomy, that what we have is a colugo and sea hares.
Again, it's important to know that many species can share common characteristics and affinities. But people, frogs, and bats have different DNA and can't be crossbred, at least not yet. Our verdict? Colugos and sea hares.